Rebel Force Radio presents
Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with desirable mutations. They call themselves the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch.
This is the Bad Batch After Show.
That's right. It's Wednesday. That means one thing, more Bad Batch and more Rebel Force Radio Bad Batch After Show. Great to be with you. Thanks for hanging with us tonight. We got a fun episode to talk about. It had a little bit of everything. It had Jedi, it had pirates, even had like a droid gang. Imagine that. Imagine droids being able to form their own like crime syndicate. I think that's a pretty interesting idea. But so glad that you could hang out with us tonight. And we're going to get to your phone calls. Of course, we've got your chats. We've got your comments. If you haven't joined us live, if you're listening to this on pre-recorded podcasts, you really need to join us. It's a lot of fun. We do it exclusively on YouTube, the Rebel Force Radio YouTube channel. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel, give us a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell. That way you know when we are about to go live. And we got a lot of Star Wars to be talking about over the next several months. We're going to actually be doing 2 of these a week because we're going to have Bad Batch running simultaneously with Mandalorian Season 3. So strap in and enjoy the ride because it's going to be a lot of fun. We want you to be there with us live if you can. That's the best way to enjoy it. But I know somebody who is always ready to enjoy new Star Wars and talk about it and take your calls and entertain all your thoughts and observations. And that is, of course, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Happy to be back. The Batch is back. And I don't think there's been a single episode of the Bad Batch that sent me down more rabbit holes than this one. Let me tell you. Man, oh man, I spent my day. It was packed with rewatching old Clone Wars episodes. And
did you get into that? You went down that path, right?
Oh,
with the Jedi younglings.
Convention panels from 8 years ago. I mean, really, just pulling out all the stops. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. This was a very rich episode. There was a lot of great things happening to it. Again, nothing monumental that will really tip the scale as far as pushing the mythology forward for the Bad Batch or addressing big picture issues like the Empire and things like that. But we do get a little taste of what the Empire has been up to in this episode. We go back to a familiar planet.
Yeah.
One that we've known since, since the holiday special, really.
Well,
okay. Want to look at it that way.
Since you brought it up, you said the words holiday special. I wanted to ask because you're much more schooled on this than I am. You've lived with it almost your whole life. And when I saw this shot right here of this Wookiee village, to me, that looked just like in the holiday special, that establishing painting that they do every time they go back to the Wookiee village. I feel like it looks just like it.
Yeah, clearly inspired by that old Ralph McQuarrie design for the holiday special. That establishing shot is a McQuarrie painting.
Right.
And that's how Ralph envisioned, a Wookiee crib to look like, and it's where they're hanging out. And, we saw similar structures in Revenge of the Sith, of course.
We did, but the composition of this, I thought they had to have been trying to, for lack of a better word, ape the look of that holiday special. And, I think the holiday special is just so much. It's so much on my mind, Jim, because, with the documentary coming out that Kyle Newman's a part of and we've been covering here, there is a thawing out a little bit, little by little, because a lot of times the creatives that are coming in to create new Star Wars, they grew up with things like the holiday special. They didn't grow up with it directly. They certainly grew up in the, with it being that that kind of I don't know, oddity, that thing that was always, made people so curious. So it's just interesting to see how it peppers itself in throughout, new Star Wars. I don't think it's the 4-letter word that it used to be.
No, but apes is to a Wookiee, and I want you to apologize for
Oh God.
that comment. Wookiees do not like that at all.
I got this.
It's called, yes.
I got this. I think I know what I need to say. I'd like to apologize for the statement that I made where I sort of conflated Wookiee and ape. I want everyone to know that's not who I am. And I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to be better.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, you have a session with Dr. Zayas scheduled for right after the show.
Help me, Dr.
Zayas. You better be on your best behavior. So.
Oh man. Well, anyway, we should.
I mean, Wookiees, they don't want to hear that. They don't want any Planet of the Apes things going on. That's called Cornelius syndrome to the Planet of the Apes. I mean, the Wookiees. Oh damn!
Cornelius syndrome. See how easy it is to do. To do. Jeff Holland on the chat says, "Cancel Swank." Yes, that's right. Well, it wouldn't be the first time, Jeff.
No. Cancel Swank T-shirts available in the RFR store right after the show as well.
All right, let's get to the tail of the tape so we can talk about this episode. We are talking about, of course, The Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 6, Tribe, directed by Stuart Lee, written by Matt Miknovitz, who is also the story editor, it seems like, on the whole season here. Matt is a great score, as always. Clone Wars veteran, yes. Same with Stuart.
The creator of Bad Batch, one of the guys who actually created The Bad Batch.
Is that right? Back in the Clone Wars days.
Yeah, going way back, yeah.
Okay.
Like 9 years ago. George Lucas had a lot of input on The Bad Batch as well. But Matt was one of the guys in the writer's room. And he's also a guy who sort of carried the torch for The Bad Batch after the Clone Wars was canceled. And he's one of the guys who really sort of spearheaded the idea of resuscitating the Bad Batch and giving them fresh life on Disney Plus.
Now, we know that George had thought about a spin-off series of the Clone Wars involving the younglings.
Yes.
That was something. I wonder if he ever envisioned a Bad Batch spinoff when he was, because I know when we talked to D. Bradley Baker, we've had the pleasure of talking to him, and he really kind of wears it as a badge of honor that, he's still working in a Star Wars idea and concept, one of the last that George had a hand in.
Yeah, the Bad Batch, for sure. And also elements of the story arc that would have introduced the Bad Batch in the Clone Wars before it was canceled. Those events would have happened on Kashyyyk. It would have been, so they're recycling story ideas from the Clone Wars and Kashyyyk, and they're including it here now in the Bad Batch all these years later, 8 years later. So, there's a lot of things peppering this whole episode that are taken directly from the concepts that were being developed during the Clone Wars era, during the George Lucas era.
Yeah, it's very cool to see those elements still alive and coming at us with new, in the form of new content. It's awesome. Great score by Kevin Kiner as always. I heard some shades of Battle of Heroes at one point as Gunji was sitting there amidst the ruin and the wreckage of the village. You heard that. Just in the background. Original air date for this episode. Matt gives me the thumbs up. All right. February 1st, 2023. He does. Yeah,
which is fantastic. Mm-hmm.
So the episode opens up with mid-mission. Bad Batch is out there to sell some forged chain codes. This is where they are, man. They're selling fake IDs.
This is
Right?
what it's come down to. They're selling bootlegs. They're out on the street selling bootlegs. You know,
Yeah.
bootleg chain code data cards programmed by Tech himself,
Right.
who will vouch for their durability and effectiveness. So he stands by his work, but that's not good enough for this crazy underground droid.
Isn't this
crime
bizarre?
operation.
It's a droid gang.
The
Criminal
Vanguard
droids.
The Vanguard Axis.
So the question I have about this idea of a, I mean, okay, so droids, they're not, I mean, they're programmed. You know, 3PO always talks about he can't do certain things because it violates his programming. And I'm thinking to myself, like, did these droids evolve? Was this like AI gone awry? Or were these droids, we don't know the history of the Vanguard Axis, this criminal organization, but it's interesting to think about, you know, whether or not they were, you know, were they droids that belonged to criminals throughout the years that found each other or whatnot? But criminal, it's like, are droids capable of being bad?
Well, I mean, we see this going back to Empire Strikes Back. IG-88 is among the bounty hunters summoned to the Star Destroyer and hired by Darth Vader. It didn't appear that anybody was holding a remote control box for him. So I think that he was, you know, I mean, the legacy of IG-88 is that of a bounty hunter,
Right?
Subservient to no one, programming be damned. And that's the thing. I mean, droids are programmed in different ways. So some droids are programmed to be one thing, other droids are programmed to be another thing. And 3PO obviously was always working within the realm of like the legal system and well, not the legal system, but like the law abiding playgrounds of the galaxy. You know, he was working with diplomats and politicians and royalty and things like that. So I think he got your fairly standard programming along the way. I think that their programming gets updated just like you update your computer, things like that. We know 3P.
It really sucks when you turn your protocol droid on and there's a software update. You got to get somewhere, you got to do some stuff, and that software update takes forever. You're watching the little progress bar go across. It's always when you need him. Always.
Yeah. I've been dealing with issues lately. My iPad has been doing this thing called ghost typing, where it just suddenly starts opening apps and typing things. And
I got to ask this, though. Have we ever told RFR listeners about your iPad, what happened to it? I don't think we've ever told this on the air.
What they got the
hold on. The fact. So Mac had this old iPad. He got years ago. He puts it in a case. Never removed this thing from the case. Years go by. He's dropping it. All kinds of stuff is happening. He goes to remove it from the case because it's not working quite right. And the whole thing just falls apart. I just love the idea that the only thing holding this thing together through years of abuse was the case itself. You pop it from the case. You have to know Mac and his relationship with technology to really appreciate this. But it's just amazing to me that the thing was literally in pieces inside the case, but still somewhat functional. Incredible.
Hey, you work with what you got. And I mean, so imagine what like I'm like inside the case. If that's what my iPad was like. Imagine like what's underneath this layer of epidermis. It ain't pretty, pal.
Yeah.
It ain't pretty. All right, let's get back to the
back to Bad Batch. We're talking, yeah. What were we talking about? We were talking about programming and software updates and all that stuff.
And evil droids.
Yeah, evil droids. Well, hey, speaking of evil, the Axis leader says that when they find Gunji, and yes, we're talking about Gunji, this guy Gunji from episode of the Clone Wars. the Wookiee youngling, Jedi Wookie. And I want to get into a little bit. I know I just made a public apology to all Wookiee kind, but I want to get into a little bit. I got to tell you, I struggle with Wookiee Jedi. I know I'm probably stereotyping. I'm not a big fan of this idea, and we can talk about it a little bit. I think Gunji's adorable. I think he's cute, but I have a little bit of an issue with it. But anyway, the Axis leader talks about the buyer.
Wait.
Oh,
I want to talk about this.
Oh, you want to talk about this now? Are we going to do this now?
Well, I think you threw it out there. I mean, because I just want to get your take on it, because I have a few thoughts about Wookiee Jedi, and maybe like I can shine a light on some things that might provide a little bit more relief for you when it comes to our furry friendly Jedi. Okay. Here's the thing. And I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone who grew up with Chewbacca in the first 3 films. Yes. Chewbacca to me was always, he was always exactly what George had sort of said about him. He was based off a dog. He was man's best friend, in the case of Han Solo. Mm-hmm. And I love dogs. I have a dog, and there can be certainly something, I think, profound and spiritual about animals, and but there's something about a Jedi Wookiee that just doesn't connect. It just doesn't work for me. I don't think of them as being quite that how do I say advanced in their thinking. I do think of them as primitive. Primitive does not mean necessarily less than, right? It doesn't mean that they mean more or worth or mean less or worth less. I don't mean that. I just mean they're not as advanced as some of the other species that we see. So can they be spiritual? Yes. I love the Wailing Wall, kind of like the equivalent that they have to the Wailing Wall there with the trees that they pray to or that they commune with and all of that stuff. But it is so far removed to me from actually being a Jedi. I also find it hard to imagine, them even recognizing the force abilities of younglings and, then the Jedi showing up and taking the child prodigy that's showing strength in the force. I don't know. It's just too. It's like an animal. It's just like an animal. It's like a furry bear or a dog. I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. All right. He's not buying it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I know Chewie flies a ship, Yanni in the.
Well, see, here's the thing: is that's a good place to start.
Okay,
I'm glad you threw that out there because that gives me a place to start. George Lucas had always intended for the Wookiees to overthrow the Empire, a la the way the Ewoks do in Return of the Jedi. He wanted that juxtaposition of a primitive society taking down the most technically advanced war machine. He loved that. And so his original plan was for the Wookiees to be the Ewoks of the 3rd film. But he felt like because he established Chewbacca as a character who understood technology, knew how to fly a ship, could battle, could communicate with humans, could exist in and around technology, he decided that eliminates Wookiees from being primitives. So in George Lucas's mind, a Wookiee was on par with a human character in the show, but there were obvious differences. As far as Wookiees and their connection to the Force, I think that it's kind of profound in a way. And even in the Star Wars radio drama, Obi-Wan Kenobi tells Luke that the Wookiees have their own affinity for the Force. They have their own connection with the Force. Yoda was tight with Wookiees. Yoda.
Yeah.
And it was no problem for Uncle Yoda to come by for a few weeks and hang with the Wookiees because he could connect with them on that level. And so the other thing is, Wookiees, despite an affinity or connection to the Force, very few were ever Jedi. And this is pointed out in the Clone Wars season 5, the episodes that introduce Gunji and all the younglings. There was an ancient Old Republic droid on board the ship when they're building their sabers. The little Jedi, they're building their sabers with Ahsoka. And there's this old ancient, and it's voiced by David Tennant from Doctor Who.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the droid. It'll come to me. Somebody in the chat knows the name of that damn droid. But he commented to Gunji. He said, wow, this is rare to see a Jedi Wookiee. That's uncommon. So we have somebody. Is that him back there? That's him with R2 on screen. Sorry, I'm so excited.
Yeah, here we can zoom in a little bit and see. Yeah. That's the droid.
That's the dude right there, man. That's that dude.
Voiced by Doctor Who.
Voiced by Doctor Who. So he commented that Gunji, that's rare for a Wookiee. And I could only think of two other Jedi Wookiee. One was at Luke's Jedi Academy in the old expanded universe, Young Jedi Knight series. His name was Lobaka. And I guess the Baka surname is really big on Kashyyyk. So Lobaka. And then there's a new one with the High Republic, Buryaga Agaburi. That's his name, Buryaga Agaburi. So, and he's a Jedi too.
Okay.
And he wears clothes. He wears Jedi robes. That was also a big thing, Jedi's wearing clothes or Wookiees wearing clothes. It was proposed by 20th Century Fox that maybe Chewbacca should be wearing some shorts or something because they didn't want
they thought it was indecent, didn't they?
Wookiee nudity.
But I mean, that was swinging around in that fur. Okay, but would you accept an Ewok Jedi?
No, because they truly are exactly what you were saying about the Wookiees. Now, they are primitive. And to be able to get them up to speed with a modern approach to religion that way, they're still worshiping golden gods. So,
but the Wookiees are praying to trees.
But they're not praying to the trees. They're actually communicating with the trees. You have to understand. That's the Wookiees' connection to the Force. And the Force connects everything. Tree, rock, stone, bird, ship. Yeah, everything.
Golden droids?
Well, not necessarily. The Ewoks are misguided by bowing to 3PO.
Yeah.
Clearly misguided. But
I think
it's the old and the shiny thing that does.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you could take a page like the Ewoks are bowing to a false idol. They're bowing to materialism. They're bowing to metal, machinery, something that's manufactured, whereas the Wookiees are communing with life. And you're absolutely right. I was just being cheeky. But
cheeky.
I think that what it is, you did a great job of explaining it all, especially with, when George sort of pivoted from, the Wookiees being the ones to overthrow the Empire to the Ewoks and all of that. I guess I'm just still stuck in the past. I still see, the Wookiees as being sort of a step and a half up from the Ewoks, but I'm down with it. I mean, it's fine. It's totally fine. It's also really, from what I understand, with the exception of Han Solo, who's doing most of the translating for Gunji? Was it Tech? Was doing most of it, or Hunter?
I guess it would have been Tech.
I think
right?
Tech was doing the majority of it. Yeah, because Hunter says his Wookiee's a little rusty.
Sorry to hear that. That's a real condition to have. There might be like a salve he can use.
David in the chat says Jason wouldn't give Chewie a medal. No, I would totally give Chewie a medal, man. I would give Chewie a medal. I'm not saying that. I just think that, the Jedi have to have. Let's put it this way, and we'll move on. But I feel like the Jedi have to have a very, very profound understanding of the nature of the universe in order to tap in, and not just tap in, because I think that instinctually you could be tapping into the Force, but to be able to wield it, to be able to control it, I think it takes a profound understanding of the nature of the universe. And part of that would be language. So you can see, in our own world, you can see, some primitive tribes that still exist, on the earth. Part of the thing that holds them back is language, and how compatible the language is with other languages. And the Wookiee language seems to be very incompatible with basic. It's a challenge. Not, we don't see many humanoids that can speak it.
No, there's a low point in the whole saga when Chewbacca's shoving Han Solo's face into the mud, and he's like, yeah, take a little of it. Oh God.
Although I'll tell you what, someone who really I think can throw down and hang with the Wookiees is Wrecker. If anyone was meant to have been or could have been a Wookiee in another life, it's Wrecker. I think he's got a lot in common with the Wookiees.
He shares a love of similar cuisine, clearly. You can sit right down. Gunji's he's got a bowl of green goo, and it looks like the most appealing thing ever. And he offers it over to one of the clones. I can't remember which one it is. But Wrecker just grabbed it and said, I don't know what you're missing. Wow.
I don't think Wrecker has met too many meals that he didn't like.
But I mean, that's the best way to bond with someone who's different than you is to share a meal and enjoy the same food together, and let the language of dining build the foundation of a great friendship.
Yeah.
Look at that. Somebody should write that down. Also, have those cancel swank t-shirts gone on sale yet?
Apparently they have. They're Nick's in the chat says, we're about to cancel Jason. And all my I'm not anti-Wookiee. And by the way, I do have to remind, Wookiees aren't real. They don't exist in reality. Hey, here's the best part of all this. I don't have to necessarily be on board with a Wookiee Jedi because they exist in Star Wars. So it doesn't matter what I think. And it certainly didn't take anything away from my enjoyment of the episode. But the question I had.
I'm glad we talked about it.
I'm glad we did too. I feel
because I never knew this about you. I thought I knew everything there is to know about you. I didn't know about this whole Wookiee thing. We'll be getting the other side of the coin.
Wait till we get the Jedi hut. Can we get a hut Jedi?
A hut? See, that doesn't work.
Why does that work?
No, because huts are soulless. They're soulless.
How dare you?
Yeah,
dude.
Yeah. Now
my dad was a hut. Okay, my dad was a hut.
Cancel Matt. T-shirts on sale later tonight, 11 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, okay. But here's what's even, I think, more nefarious is somebody wants Gunji, the Axis, the Vanguard Axis. They're involved in trafficking people, whatever you want to call it, beings, and they want him alive. So then I started thinking, well, who would it be? Who wants him and wants him alive? And I don't know. Vader definitely wanted Obi-Wan alive. That's for sure. But I don't get the sense, and I could be wrong, There's probably, but do we have any evidence or proof that the Jedi purge that's occurring, the mandate is always bring them in alive? I don't know that that's true. I think they're all sort of wanted dead or alive.
Seek and destroy. I always thought that was the Order 66 marching orders.
Yeah.
But for some reason, maybe it's because of the youth. Maybe if Palpatine is the guy, which, most arrows point at him in this situation to begin with, because we know he has been fond of collecting Jedi or Force-sensitive children.
Yes.
And this goes back to Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels. It's been repeated a few times. The whole notion that Palpatine has a nursery on Mustafar where he's got Force-sensitive infants and children there. What is he doing with them? That's
I'd love to know. It's a plot point, Jim, that they never really carried forward, and I thought it was super fascinating and could explain a great deal, but they kind of dropped it. Matthew Rooney in the chat says, well, they want the Jedi and the Amber for their cloning program.
There you go.
To
There's
make Palps eternal. So that's where my mind went, is that, imagine this. What if you got Vader on one track, and Vader, his mandate is, like you said, search, destroy, seek and destroy with his Inquisitors, get rid of the Jedi. Kenobi's a different animal because Kenobi is, he's got a lot of attachment. Vader has a lot of attachment to him. He wants the pleasure of making Kenobi pay. But what if Palpatine is running this parallel track where he wants him alive? And that's something that even Vader doesn't know. That would be kind of cool.
Could be. I think the basis for that kind of stuff goes all the way back to the expanded universe. I think the concept of Starkiller from The Force Unleashed, of Palpatine raising this Force-sensitive dark side user, I think that came to Vader. No, Vader discovered him. I forget my video game history there. Vader's the one who discovered
It's Legends anyway.
Well, how long will it be? I mean, they're coming out with the new Starkiller action figure. That was just announced today with photos and everything. So
yeah,
I don't know. I wouldn't be half surprised if that character got brought back. Somewhere Sam Witwer is like pumping his fist up in the air. Yeah. But that is if they would bring him back to play the character, and why wouldn't they?
We got a question on RFR a couple weeks ago about, well, what of the legends would you like to see, made into, say, maybe in a mini series or something on Disney Plus? That's one I would love to see. I would really like to see a animated full-length version of The Force Unleashed. That would be great. Yeah.
I've been thinking about this a little bit recently because earlier this week on RFR Q&A, we did the top 30 all-time Star Wars video games. And of course, Force Unleashed was part of that. And it got me thinking about the sequel to Force Unleashed, which was left totally open-ended because Darth Vader was actually taken into custody by the rebels. And then the story ends. And there was never a Force Unleashed 3. So that's something they almost have to bring back. People always forget about that, but that
so
was
they left you with at the end of Force Unleashed 2, it was a cliffhanger?
Yes.
Oh, that stinks. I didn't realize that.
It did stink, Jason Swank. It did stink. But a lot of people think the Force Unleashed 2 video game stunk as well. I like them both.
It certainly didn't. It certainly didn't, resonate like the first one did. I'll say that.
Well, the gameplay and everything was great. It was just like people were defeating the game like the night they bought the thing. It was a shorty. So. Yeah, and so a lot of people are feeling kind of ripped off by that, if I remember correctly. But so that I think is a candidate to come back to Star Wars in some way, is the Force Unleashed mythology. And why not? I mean, it was a great
could be great.
story told in the dark times, and just like the Bad Batches. As a matter of fact, you can maybe even bring Star Killer into the Bad Batch. Why not? I mean, not make him part of Clone Force 99, but bring him into the story.
I think it'd be great. By the way, the number is on the screen if you want to get in the queue. 708-866-1737. I know some of you want to take me to task for my Wookiee take.
Oh, stop, Pete. We're just goofing.
No,
Jason
I know.
has all the right in the world to look at Wookiees and go, nah, I don't really see them being Jedi. They don't wear the brown robes that well. They
don't need them. They got the coat.
And then, they're scary. They're walking around the Jedi temple. Their hair gets everywhere. Piss off Anakin. I mean, there's just
yeah. I might need to see one in live action. That might change my mind. So, who knows? Empire using Trandoshans to strip Kashyyyk of its resources, the slashing and the burning. We know that the Trandoshans and the Wookiees are not friends, have never been friends. We saw that play out in live action in Book of Boba Fett with Black Chris Hanton as he ripped the Trandoshan's arms from his sockets in the whatever that casino was, or
Adam Garza's Oasis. I think she called the Oasis or something.
Yeah. So yeah, they're definitely not friends. But this idea of the Empire, man, this slash and burn that they're doing throughout the galaxy, one system, one planet after another, and I think this whole dark times unfolding, within live action and animation is a lot of fun. I mean, well, you know what I mean by fun. It's fun for us to watch it play out and to see just how awful this Empire is, and they're wasting no time and just sort of sucking up everything that the galaxy has, anything of any value, and putting it to work for the Empire. But these Trandoshans, man, they have no soul. These guys, they are just the worst of the worst until we meet a Trandoshan Jedi, which sure exists.
Now, yeah, where do you stand on that? There is one, like I said, that Skier fella from the High Republic. It seems like all of the absurd ideas that we have concerning Star Wars all land in the High Republic somehow. But Trandoshan, and we know what Blake and his family, if Blake's takes returns this week, I hope it does, but we know that their family, they're strongly anti-Trandoshan as well. He mentioned that, I think, on his last call. But, of course, the Trandoshans, they're the natural enemy of the Wookiees. That kind of concept has been in place since the old expanded universe. And then it was reinforced in I think it was season 3 of the Clone Wars, when Ahsoka visited Kashyyyk, and there was Chewbacca was there, and Trandoshans being jerks.
Oh yeah, right. And there was the whole plot where Ahsoka got put on that planet where the Trandoshans were just hunting.
Yeah,
now
that wasn't Kashyyyk. That wasn't Kashyyyk, was it?
It wasn't Kashyyyk. No. It was like a random planet that they were purposely put there so the Trandoshans could hunt them. And
have we ever visited Kashyyyk in animation? I don't think so. I think this is our first trip there.
Is it really? That can't be.
Well, Star Wars Rebels, I remember the series opened showing the Empire gathering up Wookiees and putting them into slave camps and stuff like that, labor camps.
Yeah.
That was in the first story arc of Rebels, but I don't recall them actually going to Kashyyyk, but maybe I just don't remember. Of course, we went to Kashyyyk the one and only time outside of the holiday special was Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
But we do know that the Trandoshans and the Wookiees, two species at war for centuries. The commander of the Trandoshans was his name Venomore.
Venomore by name and by look reminded me of a He-Man and the Masters of the Universe character and action figure. They had Stinkor and Beast Man, and they were all these kind of on the nose names. Venomore.
Well, he's their leader, and he's offering, Wookiee pelts. That's something that the Trandoshans like. I think it gets a lot of. Yeah, we saw the Trandoshan in Book of Boba Fett when he's at the very beginning, when they're all coming in to see the daimyo and they're presenting him with their tributes, and one is a Trandoshan who has a Wookiee pelt, and it's a big one too.
He did, yes,
and we see that got Venomore. You can see on his shoulder there, he's got a Wookiee pelt. He's wearing Wookiee on his shoulder.
He is wearing Wookiee fur. That's terrible. Look at that.
Yeah. Burning down their sacred trees that they communicate with. And
I have a Wookiee coat. But every time I wear it out in public, someone throws red paint on me. It's awful.
I'm so sorry.
It's awful.
That. I have a Wookiee coat too. I have a Wookiee coat.
You really do have a Wookiee coat, yeah.
From Mark Echo. So I should have worn it for this episode. That would have been tasteless.
You really should have. But it didn't. Boba Fett, I mean, the legend of Boba Fett was such that, he was to have Wookiee pelts, right?
Oh, say again?
Boba Fett, he was supposed to be having Wookiee pelts.
Scalps.
Wookiee scalps, that's what it was. Right.
Scalps that he braided like a sicko. Yeah. So, the Wookiees, for as powerful as they are, and they have advancements in technology that they adapt to and stuff, so they have strength and smarts, yet still they get kicked around the universe like rusty cans. I mean, Wookiees need to unionize or something.
I did make a note here that there were no stun bolts that I could see, and the Bad Batch were not just up against Trandoshans. they were up against clone troopers. In fact, there's that one moment which I thought was kind of cool, where the clone trooper recognizes the marks of a laser sword or a lightsaber. Those are lightsaber marks. Those are lightsabers. And that's when Venomore is like, yes. I will give you 100 Wookiee pelts. To whoever finds.
Swank's got the Trandoshan on tonight.
I got it going on. But I thought that was kind of cool that the clone troopers, post Order 66, I mean, they're still hot on the trail of the Jedi. That's still the edict out there. It's not just Inquisitors. And I was also thinking, speaking of Inquisitors, like how soon after Order 66, the fall of the Jedi, did these Inquisitors pop up? I mean, at what point did Vader say, okay, I really need to, I need some skill out there hunting these Jedi. I can't be clone troopers or stormtroopers.
It would have to have been after Order 66 was underway for a while, because that's how I think he recruited some of these Inquisitors, was via Order 66. Maybe he got a couple of them.
Good point.
He got a couple of them in captivity, and he was waving that red lightsaber and said, "Do you have any final words?" And the Jedi's it's like, Yoda sucks. Wait, what? What? Yoda sucks. What? I might have a place for you in the Empire. We're hiring, What? So, what?
Yoda sucks.
What?
So that's what I would do if Vader was coming at me. I wouldn't get on any sort of moral high ground at that point. I would pull out anything in my arsenal to try to win his favor and really be like, hey, the dark side's better than being dead. And so I think a lot of Jedi were
you're saying better be dark than better be dead.
Why not? Why not? As Fez said on that 70s show, the dark side is great. They have cookies. That's all I need to hear. I'll turn coat in a second if I know they got some, like, fresh out of the oven chocolate chips and little pecans in there.
I got a Jimmy Mac trivia question. I have to do my best, Kevin Lyle.
Okay.
Jimmy Mac, what is the official name of the Wookiee language?
Shriwook.
Yeah, he got it. He got it.
Yeah,
no fooling him.
It was prevalent in this episode, and they did such a better job of giving Gunji. I'm gonna brain fart on this guy. They did such a better job of giving him a youthful Wookiee voice as opposed to Lumpy from the holiday special. He's Lumpy's a lot of rah, rah, rah. And Gunji's a little more chill. Gunji's kind of
so
like
unsettling.
Yeah, it's so unsettling. It's irritating.
Yeah.
And
all that vocal work was performed by Jonathan Lipow, who performed a number of voices in this episode, including Gunji. Jonathan Lipow. We've got a bunch of calls stacked up. Tyler Page, our incredible, wonderful call screener. Hey, Tyler, wave to the people. Has been hard at work screening these calls. Tyler, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, good to be back, guys.
Yeah, I like your sweatshirt. Love that hoodie. Available at rebelforceradio.com.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. All right, well, we got some callers. We'll check in with you a little bit later and get your take on this episode. So thanks for being here, as always. And we've got some super chats here as well. Want to get to those. Let's start with Calvin. Calvin says, stun bolts, not in this episode. Gunji in this episode. Thanks, Calvin. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, stun bolts. As I say, they were going up against not just the Trandoshans, but they were also going up against other clones, clones that were on the hunt. So I don't know. As we've said before, Jim, I just wish they would say it out loud on the show somehow.
There's a huge inconsistency going on here. We're super fans. We notice this crap. They know we're watching. They know we're watching. Every once in a while, somebody takes their eyes off the prize, and little elements of Star Wars inconsistency tend to sneak in. But I mean, come on, these guys are their mythology is kind of meandering at this point. So any kind of verbal exposition about where they are, who they are, where they stand is always very welcome by me. We get a little bit of that in this episode. I think the episode ends with some foreshadowing and kind of puts some of these characters in their place a little bit as far as what peg holes are going to be fitting in the future. And I have thoughts on that, but we'll get to that at the end of the show.
Yeah, let's. Here's Turtle Wars. Turtle Wars says, the moment Gunji revealed himself as a Jedi had similar feeling and reaction to the other characters as when Kanan revealed himself in Rebels. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I can get behind that. I thought that was very cool. The force pull that he used to get his lightsaber was awesome. I loved it. Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was a very, very cool scene. He's, of course, very intense as he's pulling the lightsaber towards him. And then when he ignites it, it's a moment. It's a moment. It's a very cool moment.
Omega's looking at him, thinking to herself, oh, he can do that too. Because everyone knows Omega is going to be revealed as force sensitive. I got vibes.
You think so?
I'm starting to feel it again. I felt it in season 1, and now it's on display. When she's sitting there and they get there and she goes, something off about this place. And she's sitting there and she's looking around. And it's like, what? That's kind of like Luke when he got to Dagobah. He's like, there's something about this place. Like it's kind of assessing your environment and pulling information out of thin air. She was something off about this place. This is before she's even seen anything or anybody.
Yeah, you're right. And I thought the same thing. I thought the same thing you did. And then Echo goes, yeah, Oh, I feel it too, or something like that. Like, yeah, I agree. But it could be that they're just throwing those little blocks at us to kind of throw us off. I did really like the chemistry between Gunji and Omega. I love it when Omega has another, youth or kid character to relate to. Her character really comes alive. And this was a really cute moment I'm throwing on the screen here when, they were in battle towards the end of the episode, and they kind of give each other a little knowing look, and then they, spring back into action. I like that a lot. Omega, she's one of those characters that you think about and you're like, why do I like this character so much? But I really do like her. I find her very unassuming. She's not overly precocious. And she's just sweet. I don't know how you could not like her because she's very pure. She's always wanting to do good by everybody and what's fair. And she comes to Gunji's. She doesn't even think twice before she comes to Gunji's aid there as she sees him being abused by those droids, those Vanguard Axis droids, and she jumps, without, you can tell, without even really thinking, she jumps into action to help him. I just, I think it's very, very
kind
sweet.
of the theme thus far of this season. That's sort of the theme, is Omega just jumping headfirst into situations and pulling the Bad Batch along with her. I mean, she's always determining what their next destination is going to be. This is 4 episodes in a row in which she's done that, and it's been every episode this season.
Yeah, you're right.
And so she's really sort of without Sid or Fee. It's basically the same character anyway in my head, Sid may be a little more connected to the underground, Fee may be a little more connected to exploration, but they both kind of have a similar vibe with the Bad Batch, and it seems like they are the launching pad for the Bad Batch to go off on adventures. But that's really shifted in season 2 here now, where we're seeing it. It's definitely Omega who is putting them on a path, so they have something to do. And that's what she's doing with them. And of course, this springs out of one situation, and the situation was the Bad Batch. They were selling bootleg chain code cards, data cards, and then that launched
fake IDs.
This whole fake ID.
Hey,
and then off of that, I mean, that space station at the very beginning that sort of had that elongated shape, and it was hovering over that planet. That was. I must have watched the Havoc Marauder approaching that station. I must have watched that like 10 times. I thought that was just some brilliant animation, and especially in the stuff on Kashyyyk, just brilliant animation.
Some stunning scenery, and we used it as the thumbnail for the episode. But when they were kind of climbing down that mountain, I was just blown away by that this morning when I was watching the episode. I thought it was beautiful, just fantastic.
Great.
Hey, you know what time it is? Check your watch.
Yep, it is that time, Jason. It's
time for Blake's Take. Blake's on the line. Hey, buddy. Thanks for calling in. Oh, hey, Blake. Can you hear us now?
Hey.
Hey.
There he is.
Hey. What happened last week? Where were you last week? We really needed you. We were.
I was sick.
You were sick. Oh no. I'm sorry, dude. Are you feeling better?
Yeah.
You feeling better?
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better.
Good. And so you this week's episode, Tribe, got Gunji back, hanging with Omega, Wookie Jedi.
Yeah.
Your thoughts? Blake's Take. Give it to us.
This episode was really good. It had a lot of story, and then it wraps up. You meet Gunji at the beginning, and then you leave him at the end. You have a character for this episode. It's a new friend, and it's like an old friend for us, but for Omega and the Bad Batch, it's a new friend, just like the description of the episode.
Yeah, that's right.
But I know how you guys were talking about the whole Trandoshan thing and how you don't like the Wookiees and stuff being Jedi.
Well, that was me. I got to set the record straight. I was saying that I struggle with Wookiees, being Jedi, not necessarily being Force sensitive, because I think anybody or anything can be Force sensitive, but to be a Jedi, I was struggling with that one.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense.
Oh yeah, you're on my side. You're on Team Swank.
I mean, I'm okay with them being Jedis and all that. It's just I get what you're going for about how you weren't excited or thinking straight about why they were Jedi, since they're completely different. And all the Wookiees we usually see, they're all they usually use crossbows or guns, just any weapon. But it's the only Wookiee in the Star Wars TV shows that have a lightsaber. It's Gunji.
Yeah, well, that's true.
The comics and stuff like that.
That's true. So, what do you make of Gunji and Omega's friendship here? I always feel bad because it's like Omega meets these friends, and then as soon as she meets a friend, they go off and do their own thing, and Omega's still stuck on the Marauder with those old guys. My four dads. It would. I was kind of thinking that maybe Gunji would stick around. Maybe Gunji would be a more permanent fixture with the batch and Omega.
Yeah.
Well, I have a theory that they're going to go back to Kashyyyk again, because Crosshair and the Empire, somebody's going to find out that they're still alive. They're going to find them, and that's going to be the place they go to hide, is Kashyyyk, because they'll have help from Gunji and all the Wookiees, because they'll help fight since they help keep them alive. They'll go and help the Bad Batch survive since they help. Since the Bad Batch helped them.
You're absolutely right. I think that we haven't seen the last of Gunji in the Bad Batch. I think that in the same way that we've seen in Mandalorian, Mando has accumulated these allies. Yeah. And we've seen that pay off for him in the same way I think that we might see that pay off for the Bad Batch. I love it. Hey, Blake, before we let you go, dude, I've just been informed that we now have an official theme for Blake's Take. Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
Blake's Take, go time, excellent. Okay. Right.
Party on, Blake.
That reference is probably a little too old for you, buddy, but trust me, it's a good one.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Ask your dad. Ask your Trandoshan hating pops to. I'm not making that up. Blake revealed that on a prior call.
Yes, he did.
His
yes,
dad,
he did.
Has a certain amount of disdain for the Trandoshans, kind of like you with the Wookiees, Swank. It's his dad with the Trandoshans.
You know me.
So yeah. So ask your dad if it's okay if you can watch Wayne's World, and then you'll understand what your theme is all about.
Thanks, Blake. Appreciate it, buddy. You're always welcome here. We love to have Blake's Take here on Rebel Force Radio and the Bad Batch After Show. We got some more super chats. You guys are just you're the best. You're the best. Here's
Yes.
Turtle Wars. The moment Gunji. I already read Turtle Wars. You're not
I
the
want to
best,
thank
Turtle
Art
Wars.
from LaGrange Park, Illinois, for supplying us with the Blake's Take theme, the Wayne's World Blake's Take.
Yes, thank
Party
you,
on.
Art.
Yeah,
Here's
sorry.
Scott St. Louis says, Stun Blast not in this episode. Maybe the batch can open a Trandoshan boots, belt, and barbecue boutique. Oh, man.
Hey, eye for an eye.
That's
These
dark.
guys are walking around wearing Wookiee pelts. I mean, Trandoshans, you can just have one of them and, crack off their arms and legs. They'll grow back. and you can just keep
That's
serving
true.
that up.
That's true. That's real science there. David says, when Gunji was sitting alone on the ship and the Bad Batch asked what he was doing, I immediately yelled, "Meditating like Cal." A lot of fallen order vibes.
Cal Kestis.
Sorry, Cal Kestis. It's Swank don't know. Sorry, don't know. Fallen Order.
No, you have a little added time to fit in gameplay of Jedi Fallen Order because the sequel has been pushed back to mid-April. It was supposed to come out.
They had to move it back.
Yeah. Well, I think this is another case of Lucasfilm with their ready, fire, aim mentality, because they realize that it's dropping right at the same time The Mandalorian is dropping, and I think they want to compartmentalize their hype machines. So, that's why the Bad Batch got pushed back, because it was rubbing up against Andor too much in the fall. So it got pushed back to winter, or, early 2023. And then now Jedi Fallen Order, instead of having it drop right at the height of Mandalorian season 3 hype, they're pushing it back to right after the season ends. And that's wise.
You're right about the ready, fire, aim technique. It's getting tiresome. Like, why don't you guys figure this out? Get a calendar out, put it on a big desk in a conference room and map it out first. They just love to announce stuff. God, do they love to announce stuff.
I think, after seeing what DC is doing and how they're sort of organizing things and the way Marvel has been doing things,
Right.
I mean, that's the proper approach to take with big franchises like this, instead of the throw anything at the wall to see what sticks routine or the pass the baton routine. We've seen Kathleen Kennedy employ these methods as far as franchise maintenance over the years. I think somebody really needs to get into a writer's room, close the door, and don't come out for 6 months until they have a plan in place.
Got to have a plan.
Just like the cat did with DC.
The only thing that worries me about DC are all those release dates that they put out there. That's the thing that worries me a little bit, because these are obviously films that they're not written, they're conceived, they have ideas, but hey, we love Patreon supporters. They do jump to the head of the line. But once you're inside the head of the line, how do we decide who gets preference amongst the Patreon supporters? Well, first-time callers.
Push-up contest. Let's go.
First-time callers. We got Matt from Utah. Matt calling in here on the Bad Batch After Show. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Jason. Let me Chut.
Chut,
Hey,
my
Matt.
friend.
Shut.
So today in this episode, seeing Gunji, like, he's already a pre-existing character that we've seen. And in season 1, we saw Kanan Jarrus and then also Harrison Dula. So it made me think about, with season 2, we still got a whole bunch more episodes. If we'll see more characters from Rebels show up, kind of fill up that gap a little bit more, maybe see Sabine Wren, get some more Mandalorians. What are your guys' thoughts on?
Well, I mean, when it comes to Mandalorians, I mean, do we really need another show focusing on Mandalorians? We really, I like Mandos. I can't wait for season 3 of Mando and all of that. But I feel like they don't need any more signal boosting in the Star Wars universe.
Right.
And Sabine, she's going to be all over the Ahsoka series. She's going to get her time. I'll tell you what I'm enjoying about Bad Batch, and at the risk of it being repetitive, I mean, I do like the fact that they're giving us this glimpse, somewhat like, in the way that the Clone Wars showed us how the Clone Wars were impacting people across the galaxy. The Bad Batch is now showing us how the emerging Empire is impacting, and these are the early days of the Empire, are impacting, the galaxy at large. So I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying system hopping, planet hopping, and seeing the impact of the Empire. As far as getting these other characters in, I thought that Gunji was pretty cool. Rex is great. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I don't have this strong desire to see connective tissue between Bad Batch and Rebels.
Well, really, I think that's going to happen in the Ahsoka series. And like you said, Jason, we risk overexposure for these characters. You drop a Sabine, you drop a Chopper into Bad Batch. And I know Hera was in season 1 of the Bad Batch, but that was almost 2 years ago now.
Right.
So
Young
there's
Hera.
yeah. So there's been a little bit of separation there, but we know that these characters and the Rebel story is going to be continued to be told in the Ahsoka series. So I think that they have their place now. And what I really want to see happen in the Bad Batch, more than just like the way the Empire is putting its thumb down on the regular Joe in the universe, we see that in Andor.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
Or even a continuation of the Clone Wars, I don't know if I necessarily want to see that in a Bad Batch. I do like seeing elements of Order 66 show up in the Bad Batch in whatever way it does. Because I think there's still interesting stories to be told surrounding Order 66. Quite honestly, I think that's an unending supply of storytelling. And I think Lucasfilm should maybe consider that for a future animated series, Star Wars, Order 66.
That's
the Hunt of the Jedi Knights. Come on. How many stories can we were told there are 10,000 Jedi about the time of the Phantom Menace. So, Your table is set, sir. Please sit down and let's dine for seasons after
That's a really
seasons
cool
on
idea.
this stuff.
What a great
So go
idea.
for it. But I like seeing it show up in the Bad Batch. What I really want to see this show pay off with, more than Omega showing Force ability or anything like that. Obviously, I want to see the characters develop and evolve because I think they're all going to be vastly different than the characters that the show started with. I want to see the clones versus the stormtroopers. I want to see clone troopers versus stormtroopers, a trooper civil war happen. And I think we always talk about the meat on the bone.
Yeah.
That's a hefty shank of red meat right there.
It's like one of those turkey legs you get at Disney.
Oh,
that's how much meat there is.
You sit down with that thing for the rest of the day. So let's look at that and see if there's potential there, because I think there's a ton of potential there and the things that we've seen happening in this series thus far, and the Empire with their desire to phase out the clone troopers anyway. Clone troopers are aging at double time.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's let them go out in a blaze of glory. And let's see them stick it to the Empire and show their true loyalty to the Jedi and prove that those inhibitor chips were a joke. So let's, it's hard to say they're a joke now in hindsight after all the massacre. All the Jedi blood has been spilled.
Tell that to Ayla Sakura, okay? So tell her tell Kiadi Mundi it was a joke.
But the longevity of it is phony because the whole thing is artificial and it's all programming. And, sooner or later, the individual human spirit will rise up out of these clones. And that's what I'd like to see. And then we get the clone troopers. Then we can go back and watch those prequel films and not always be thinking about how Commander Cody is going to turn on Obi-Wan and how all the clones are going to wipe out the Jedi. But we can look at it and say, these MFers got redeemed at the end, God bless them. Right. So we spent the whole prequel series and the Clone Wars series rooting for the clones. Give us a story that redeems them on a whole. And that would be them turning their back on that chip programming and taking it to the streets and blowing away the stormtroopers as best they could.
Well, and as we've said many times before, it also fulfills the moniker of the Clone Wars versus the Clone War. And if there was if this was like sort of like the World War II equivalent, of the Clone Wars, I think it's a brilliant idea. I really do. I've loved it ever since we
Blaze of Glory
started talking about it. There was an image in this episode that I just wanted to call attention to. That was, I thought, quite profound. You've got Gunji. He's sort of kneeling at the site of a demolished, razed, burned, trashed Wookiee village. And I immediately had flashbacks to in the sequel trilogy where you had Luke kind of kneeling in disbelief and meditation, prayer, whatever, at the site of the burning of his Jedi temple. So those two images I thought were quite interesting. I'm not sure if it was done on purpose, but I like to draw those analogies. Also, something that I thought was kind of fun is that in the episode you get to see the rations, the food rations that Omega offers to Gunji, and it's very, very similar to what we see in The Empire Strikes Back on Dagobah, as Luke is also enjoying his rations. Here's a close-up shot of that. And they look very, very similar. So you started wondering. I remember when in that scene, Jim, when Yoda is grabs the little like breadstick out of Luke's rations, and at the time, this is really going down Jason Swank's childhood history, or whatever. But at the time, there would be these commercials for Stella Dora breadsticks back in the 80s. And I always thought, as a little kid, I would see that commercial. I'd be like, that's what Yoda eats on Dagobah out of Luke's lunchbox. Yoda food. So it got me to think, what was actually in there? And believe it or not, this has been documented. Mark Hamill, if you've ever wondered what the hell was in that kit on Dagobah, Mark Hamill has actually said what it was. He revealed that there were mixed nuts, mint Tic Tacs, which you can actually see the white Tic Tacs down there. There were also orange Tic Tacs, which are right next to the white ones.
Because it matches the color of Luke's X-Wing pilot suit.
Well, you do want to coordinate what you're eating with what you're wearing.
That's right.
Also, sesame sticks, which they could have been the Stella Dora breadsticks that I saw as a kid. Yeah. They're crackers. Yeah, crackers. Yep. That's all he could remember, but others have speculated that there looks like there could be some Mentos, maybe some Lifesavers in there, but very, very similar.
Some flatbread of some sort. I don't know,
to what we see in the rations there for.
Well, that's an obvious callback to Empire Strikes Back, and you can get your own little Star Wars lunchbox if you go to Galaxy's Edge and drop $25 on their Resistance MRE box.
Oh, you're kidding!
It's very similar to
really?
That. No, you can go and purchase it contains lemon candies, cheddar crackers, peanut butter filled pretzels, pretzel rods, honey roasted peanuts, chocolate cereal, mints, orange jelly beans, and French burnt peanuts. How do you get so big eating food of this kind? Indeed.
Oh, man.
So $25 for that crap, but you get the plastic box. You get the plastic box. And you can put your
Tic Tacs, well, you can keep that, and then
put your Stella Dora breadsticks in there. So I know what I'm getting you for your
oh man, do they even still make those? Let's go back to the phones. We got Matt, another Patreon supporter, Matt, joining us. Hey Matt, thanks for your patience.
Maddie.
Thanks for holding. What's going on?
Hey guys, hello. Back again from last week. The only caller I felt very important last. Can you hear me?
Oh, hello? Yeah, we can hear you, and thank you for calling in last week. Yeah, there was a lot of chatter in the chat, as there always is, but there weren't a lot of callers. This week is a little bit different. So thanks for holding down the fort. Appreciate it.
You got it. You got it. Well, I'm gonna have to get a Blake's Take, a logo in. If I
all right, man.
keep
Let's
getting
not
some
get
people like that.
overboard here, okay? You only called in twice, and you're not a cute kid. So this is
No
stop producing your
logos
bit.
or theme songs yet, Matt. Come
man.
on.
You're getting a little
Fair
greedy
enough.
here. Just
Fair
say
enough.
your piece and move along.
Well, it's hard to top Blake for sure, and I think he had a couple of great things to say as well. I like his prediction of going back to Kashyyyk, and the idea that this could possibly attract Inquisitors. You hear the clone at one point that was helping the Trandoshans have a throwaway line like, "Hey, should we contact the boss or the elders or whoever it is to bring in reinforcements?"
Yep.
And the Trandoshan kind of says, "No, I want to get him first," kind of thing. But we don't know if a message was sent there, and what that could mean for Kashyyyk, because, having played the Fallen Order games, we know that the Empire is definitely interested in Kashyyyk. They're definitely trying to industrialize it in some way, and I'm sure taking advantage of its resources. We see that.
A lot of beautiful trees there, Matt. I got to say, whenever I see Kashyyyk, I think about all the amazing things I could make out of those trees. Pianos, paper,
absolutely,
houses, I see a lot of opportunity.
Death stars, perhaps, in the case of the Empire. Any option is open to the Empire, and I think they're thinking, Kashyyyk is a resource to build what they need to build.
Yeah, the best thing about a tree is what you do with it after you tear it down. You turn it into all these beautiful things.
Very incorrect. Very incorrect. And the trees to the Wookiees were sacred. They were sacred, as they are to many people here on good old planet Earth. And those trees and the ability to communicate with the trees. There was concept art shown at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim back in 2015. And it revealed it was Tarful, who was in this Clone Wars arc that was supposed to be based on Kashyyyk. And Tarful was fighting against the Separatists as kind of like what we see in Revenge of the Sith, but this was supposed to be a precursor to that. Elements from that story were lifted from that canceled arc, Clone Wars arc, and placed into this episode of Bad Batch. And so a lot of info about this arc was revealed at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim in the panel called Untold Clone Wars.
Untold Clone Wars.
Which I rewatched today. I went down the rabbit hole because, again, my desire to rewatch these episodes with the descriptive audio track, that's what set me down the rabbit hole, because they kept referring to those creatures that pop up out of the forest, and they're kind of insectoid. They're tall creatures with insect legs.
Oh, the Kinrath.
The Kinrath, yes.
Yeah.
Well, they get identified. They get identified in the audio track. I was like, Kinrath? Have we ever heard Kinrath before? So I looked them up, and I realized that they were revealed to... Right, they were revealed to everyone at Star Wars Celebration in 2015, in that Untold Clone Wars panel.
It was actually before that, if I could chime in.
Were they in KOTOR as well?
Knights of the Republic was the first time we saw them.
That's right.
Oh, Matt throwing down with the KOTOR. I love it.
KOTOR. The KOTOR. I really, really need to get into that game, because there's a lot of KOTOR.
It's worth it, guys.
Yeah. I just never got into it.
And there will be a remake, I hear. So you might want to just wait for the remake to come out.
Possibly.
That's been rumored for a long time, that KOTOR remake. There was talk about KOTOR being brought to the cinemas. That there was going to be a KOTOR feature. Who was attached to that? Was that the Game of Thrones guys?
It may have been. And Laeta Calligretis, who is a writer, was also attached to that.
Yeah. But Matt, I know you wanted to talk about Wookiee tech. What specifically about Wookiee tech?
Yeah. Well, I just want to come to my Wookiee brother's aid for a second and kind of remind us how amazing they are with technology in general. If you remember in Revenge of the Sith, They have flying technology with wing-like contraptions. Several models that just fly around, and let's be honest, if a primitive Wookiee tribe can make airships, I'm gonna bump them up on the civilization ability. So I'm all here for Jedi Wookie.
Jedi
Give me
Wookie.
more Jedi Wookie,
All
or
right.
let's follow Gunji some more. Let's see where this takes him, because technically he's not a Jedi, he's a Padawan, which means
That's
still
true.
falls in line with what Yoda says. That the last of the Jedi you are. I mean, Gunji could be the hero of Kashyyyk, and is meanwhile fighting the Empire, in the deep force of Kashyyyk, with his, message of environmentalism and, making sure he quashes the evil Empire in that way. So I love that.
I love it. Hey, Matt, thanks. Great call. Appreciate it, buddy. Thanks so much for being a Patreon supporter. You got a lot of folks cheering for you in the chat. I love the way the chat rallies around the callers. They're like, yeah, Matt's calling. Oh, good on Matt. He rolled with it really well. He rolled with the guys. It was great.
He survived. But
Yeah,
the
he
Wookiees, it's more than environmentalism, though. When it comes to these trees, these guys have a very profound bond with these trees. They communicate with the trees. This is like chopping down a tree would be like killing your aunt and uncle. It's the equivalent of that for these Wookiees.
They're very connected.
It's not just like, tree hugging hippie stuff. These guys really get to know these trees.
No, they absolutely do. I mean, the scene where they're talking to the trees, and I think that's actually the term that they use.
Communicating. And that stuff comes specifically
asking the trees for help. That's because they believe that the planet belongs to the trees.
And at one point, Gunji goes to, he says, the trees have a plan.
Yeah.
Right? The trees have a plan. The plan was start knocking on the trunks as hard as you can, so those Kinrath come dropping down and wreak havoc.
Yeah, I had an uncle that started talking to trees at one point, and, well,
I knew a dog that used to chew on trees. He was just like a really nutty dog. But the idea that the Wookiees have this relationship with the trees, that comes straight from George Lucas. That's directly from Lucas.
Yeah.
And that was revealed in that Untold Clone Wars arc, where they spend about 10 minutes talking about the Kashyyyk arc that got canceled because the series got canceled. And so now, all these years later, they're still repurposing those ideas into the Bad Batch. And this episode really, really felt like a solid extension of the Clone Wars to me.
I couldn't agree more. I thought I thought that it was very Clone Wars. I thought it was very George as well.
Yeah.
There was, we know that George loved stories like this. Anytime he had an opportunity to show how technology can be bested by those who are perceived to having less of it. I mean, he loved that. Some super chats. I can't believe Suds, our buddy Suds, spent $10 just to say that Swank's hair is on point tonight. He's actually asking the question. Can I just say that Swank's hair is on point? Suds, I tell you what, I owe you a couple of drinks next time we see each other. Thanks, brother. That's very kind. I do try. There
is a rumor that Swank might be coming to Chicago in the springtime. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
just throwing that out.
This is how you publicly commit me, which I love. I need that little. I need that nudge.
I'm manifesting
I need
a Swank visit because it's been a long time, dude. You haven't been out here since 2019.
It's been a while, and I can't wait.
4 years.
I want to see the work in progress on the new Star Wars room. I'm dying.
You got
to
because I want to show you first before I start shooting videos of it and showing people, because everyone's asking, and I think this is a whole Instagram thing ready to explode.
Yeah, how done is it?
It's done.
It's done.
It's all done. It's
no
done.
kidding. I didn't even know this.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, it's done.
It's done.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I can safely say that. I can breathe a sigh of it. Took a year to repurpose my entire collection into the Star Wars vault, and now it's all in the vault.
Awesome.
Yikes.
I know Billy Mack has probably seen it. Billy Mack has seen
Once on Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And you know what? What was his word when he came down the first time he saw it? He's like, "Is this for real?" I think he said something like that.
Is this for real?
Yeah.
Are you an angel?
It was like that. It was like a kid Anakin response, kind of.
Are you an angel? Sal B. Crumb says, love this episode. I know not every story needs a Jedi, but I love seeing Gunji wield his lightsaber. No stun bolts tonight. Lumpy, not in this episode. Hashtag Black Series Max Rebo will save Hasbro. Did they announce that today?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. All right.
I don't think so.
Got
I don't
excited.
think- no,
Oh, man,
I'm not
I'm
aware.
dying for a Max Rebo band set for the Black Series. I got all excited there, Sal.
I've seen a lot out of Hasbro these days, let me just say. They
That would
made
be
a series of
HasLab.
announcements. They made a series of announcements today that couldn't have been more underwhelming if they tried. So I expect until their board of directors deems the company is once again profitable, I don't have high hopes for anything coming from
it's bad.
Hasbro.
It's bad news coming out of Hasbro, I'm afraid. Zero Cool says the joy that you two bring to people's lives through Star Wars is inspiring, and it gives people something to look forward to. So thanks for all you do. That's really kind. That's very, very, very kind. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
that means a lot.
I love it.
That really does.
I get joy from things like that. I mean, that little message made my day. I just want to say,
Yeah,
that
thank
made my
you
day.
for making our day. Who else we got? We got Hunter Chambers says, I noticed Gunji's lightsaber looked very Rebelsy as opposed to Clone Warsy. Thought it was interesting since Bad Batch leans more Clone Wars in animation style. The one thing I would say about Gunji's lightsaber is that it's a wooden hilt.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And I think that was revealed in Clone Wars, right?
It
When
was.
they were constructing their lightsabers.
Season
Yeah.
5. Yeah. Season 5 of Clone Wars. Gunji is featured in 4 episodes. The Younglings arc, we called it. The Gathering, A Test of Strength, Bound for Rescue, and A Necessary Bond. And in that arc, he constructs the very same saber we see on this episode. And it was good to see that it had the saber itself got a nice little cameo moment on the ship when he said, I can't remember which one it was. It maybe Hunter. He just said your laser sword. There we get that
Yes,
laser sword.
Hunter did say laser sword. Yeah, he tells him to hide it. Like you might not want to be brandishing that.
So Gunji holds it up and gives it its nice little spot and let it shine in the spotlight for just a second. We can go, oh, look at there. So naturally that set me on the whole rabbit hole thing again. I'm like, now I have to watch those Clone Wars episodes. So I did. And I'm like, yep, same saber. I'll I watched 4 episodes just to make sure it was the same saber.
That's the one.
That's what we do around here.
Right. 105 minutes later, Mac's like, there it is.
Yeah. So definitely. So his saber is actually steeped in Clone Wars mythology, and we have a place to even find its origin. So no connection to Star Wars Rebels whatsoever.
This is a super chat here from Adrian. Says, talking about video games in the Bad Batch, these creatures were Kinrath's first seen on Kashyyyk back in KOTOR in 03. Yeah, I think and
right.
Adrian had this super chat sent over to us before we talked to Matt. So I just want to give proper props. It wasn't like he was just saying what Matt was saying, but yeah, KOTOR.
They're from KOTOR, the Kinrath. And they're also known as netcasters, because they can actually shoot a spray like Spider-Man. They can shoot a net at you. And they were set to appear in one of those canceled episodes of Clone Wars. And the show was canceled before the episode was completed. And a clip from that episode featuring the Kinrath specifically, while still in the animatic form, it was shown at Star Wars Celebration 2015, where the creatures attacked Wookiees and the Bad Batch. This was the same series that was the same arc that was going to originally introduce the Bad Batch. And these creatures were going to attack them, but they were fought off and they were I think they're sentient. I think that's the sort of we're sort of led to believe they're sentient.
Okay.
They're primitive. They're primitive and they're very
But they
aggressive.
have a self-awareness.
Yes.
Right.
And they can spit these spider webs. And at one point we see them using the webs here on this Bad Batch episode when they lower down from the trees. When the Wookiees are pounding the trunks of the trees, that brings the Kinrath down, and then they attack the
Well, and also at the end when it's so eerie because they're hoisting Venomore up into the trees.
Oh, yes.
God knows what's going to happen to him, and he's screaming. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy, that's for sure. But it was eerie. His screams, and Gunji is watching that. Gunji knows what's going to happen to him, I think.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Gunji's down with it because that's part of the plan. The trees had a plan.
The trees
and
did
Gunji was hip to
have
that.
a plan.
Gunji was hip to that.
Turtle Wars comes in and says, with Gunji being yet another surviving Jedi, does anyone think we'll ever get an ending for him? Or is he going to be showing up in Ahsoka and beyond? That's a good question. There are loose threads. I was thinking about Cody and how I just wasn't thinking about it, but he was a loose thread. And now he continues to be a loose thread. We didn't really know what happened to Cody. And now we have another chapter in his story. So with Gunji, is that another possibility to add to the canon? With a Gunji and in something in Ahsoka. There are a lot of Jedi out there. I think that's one of the things that we're learning is that at the period of time when we think that Luke is it, there are other Jedi out there. But here's what I think is really important for people to remember. The idea never was that any Jedi could do what Luke did. It wasn't a matter of any Jedi showing up and defeating Darth Vader and his Emperor. It had to have been Luke. It had to be Luke because of the relationship of him, to Vader. Couldn't have been just anybody, Jim. So in some ways, the fact that there are other Jedi out there is somewhat... Sorry.
But
is
Yoda
somewhat meaningless.
He said, the last of the Jedi you will be. Yoda said that. That's etched in stone. The last of the Jedi you will be. Well, Gunji's not a Jedi. But
he's a Padawan.
And it's hard to say what Yoda knows and what he doesn't know. What can the Force, what sort of information when you tap into the Force does it give you? Does it give you a Rolodex of all the Jedi that survived Order 66? Do you have that? You can just open up the Rolodex and, oh, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. Is that how the Force works?
That's not
we've
how
seen
the
that
Force
Jedi.
works.
We've seen how okay, you want to reference the sequels? I will as well. We've also seen how Jedi can unattach themselves from the Force. They can pull the plug on the Force. We saw Luke do it. And the profound effect of doing that is it turns you into a major asshole.
Side effects?
See the Last Jedi for reference.
All right,
that's what happens. So you can unplug from the Force.
All right, we got one more caller here. John from Georgia. John, thanks for holding on. Appreciate the patience, buddy. I am told that this is a good call. We couldn't miss this call. So what do you got for us?
Okay. No pressure. Okay. So I really enjoyed this episode. I will say my favorite part was watching Venomore get returned to the Circle of Life by the giant spiders.
That was awesome.
What's that? Circle of Life. Is that a Lion
once
King
again,
reference?
you guys.
I never saw Lion King.
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah.
You never saw Lion King?
Circle of Life.
No, I never
not the
saw
movie,
Lion
not the
King.
musical, nothing. What is
None
wrong
of
with
that
you?
crap. Well, what do you mean? What's wrong with me? I didn't see it.
I don't know how
I didn't see a bunch of movies from that era.
Is that you're missing?
I don't know how to help you.
Hold on, I got to ask Mac. Because I know I know what it's like to have a missing era in movies, because it was when when my kids were first being born. I went like 10 years. Like the whole Marvel, seriously, like the whole Marvel, like from Iron Man on, I missed because the kids were being born and there was all kinds of parenting and stuff going on. Lion King is such a seminal moment in pop culture. It was huge as part of that Disney Renaissance in the 90s. What were you doing? How did you not see Lion King?
I would have seen it. Now, see, it's the exact opposite of what you're saying. Is it
okay?
I wouldn't have gone to that movie because I didn't have kids at that time.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I was, you know, I had my son at the end of the 90s, 1999. So I saw all the kid movies of the 2000s. Believe me, I did.
Yeah, right.
Believe me, I did. Sitting there, I'm like, what am I doing here? Looney Tunes back in action. Why? You know, what am I doing here? And even like Looney Tunes, that should appeal to me, old school, but it just didn't. You know, Yu-Gi-Oh, the movie. And I'm like, what am I doing?
You were there
here,
for that.
Well, I'm like, you know, he's having
Pokemon.
The kids, for the kids, you know, kids.
For the kids.
So,
okay.
So that's, you know, if I had kids during the Lion King era, the Little Mermaid era, all that stuff in the 90s, they wouldn't buy me. I didn't pay any attention to that. I was out on the town, pal. I was I was painting the town red, man. So that's why I never saw Lion King to this day, though, and it just never happened. Yeah.
Well, that was a rabbit hole, John.
Sorry, John.
I know how to help you if you never saw Lion King.
See, that's what I'm saying. Is I obviously need some kind of help. That's why I'm talking about it on the show. I'm trying to search for some cathartic moment here by just exposing this empty hole in my soul. But John's just like, I can't help you. Why don't you just say, hey, you should watch the movie, Jimmy? Maybe you'll enjoy it, and we can move on. But now I'm having a complete meltdown.
That's my Lion King plus.
All right, John. Let's keep our eyes on the prize here and talk about the Bad Batch.
Okay, so while I was listening to you guys, a whole bunch of other stuff occurred to me, but to just stay focused on what I called about, the thing about Jedi Wookiees, I think you actually have a point about why Wookiees being unlikely to be Jedi, but I don't believe it's because of technology, because people talk about Chewbacca flying the Millennium Falcon. Well, he also was the one that repaired it. He was the only one that could put C-3PO back together. He plays chess. He was surprised when he lost at Holo Chess. And the Wookiees on Kashyyyk are actually, in a way, they're actually more technologically advanced because they figured out how to integrate the technology with the trees without harming them. So they can use technology. I think they just pick and choose. But I think that Wookiees don't normally become Jedi because they're very connected to family and tribe. And the Jedi make you abandon your emotional attachments to become a Jedi. And Wookiees are, they're more connected to nature. And I think they actually may be stronger as Force users than the average person, because you think about it, a Wookiee lives 400 years. So they have a long time to develop a strong connection with the Force compared to humans, which is part of why Yoda is so strong, because he trained in the Force for 400 plus years. And so I think even the language thing isn't an issue, because Jedi can communicate mentally, or using the Force anyway. So I don't think the big issue is their ability to grasp the concepts. I think they probably have a greater understanding of the Force. They're probably like maybe a step down below the Bendu in terms of how they understand the Force. But I think that barrier is the Wookiees' reluctance to leave attachment behind. I'm rewatching Solo, and I remember Han saying that the Wookiee word for tribe, friends, and family are so similar that he can't really distinguish them because Wookiees don't recognize a significant difference. And then in this episode, the elder said that the trees cry when a Wookiee child leaves the planet.
Right.
So imagine you're asked to cut off all of your attachments to everyone. It's like cutting off an arm. And then the trees are crying when you leave the planet. On the plus side, I noticed that people were saying in the chat, how did Gunji find the Wookiees? How did he know where to go? I think he just asked the trees when he got back. Just asked the trees.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, I think they are very, very connected to the Force, and they have a longer time span to develop their understanding of the Force to the point where they actually don't need some of the, like, remember when Obi-Wan was trying to train Luke, he kept telling him to let go of the technology,
Right.
Start to trust the Force,
Right.
trust his feelings, be more intuitive.
Yeah.
The Wookiees don't have that problem. They figured it out.
Wow, they're on the other
So,
side. John, I love what you're saying, which is sort of they're on the other side of complexity. You know, there's two sides of it.
Yeah.
There's the near side, and then there's the far side, and then the other side, the far side of complexity. They've already thought their way through it, and then they've sort of come back to the basics and nature and all of that.
Right.
I love what you're throwing down, man. And I particularly like the connection that you draw to the Wookiees and Yoda, and, you know, Yoda saying, you know, Mac brought this up earlier, that he has a great relationship with the Wookiees, and it would make sense that these long-lived species would probably find each other.
Right.
Because for a lot of reasons. One reason, they can sort of relate to each other, and the fact that they're so long-lived, you know, they would naturally keep up.
I mean, imagine having friends who aren't going to die before you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Great thoughts, man. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for calling. It's always
And
good.
John,
We talked to you a couple weeks ago.
You called. Yeah. You called a couple weeks ago, didn't you?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, about the clone aging, when I thought the clones were just kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before you get to your final thought,
I mean, I think that accelerated aging. Yeah. Let me say it really quick, because I know you have other people. I think that it leaves fans lost. Star Wars has a problem because it's a big universe, and unlike the MCU and DC, they don't have multiverses. So everything, you know, we have older fans who maybe aren't used to the games and stuff being connected. So when I watch these shows and people are like, this was just filler, a lot of times it's because they don't realize that Star Wars is now starting to come back and connect everything to the game, everything together: comics, games, movies, books. And what it does to me is make me want to go back and research and experience this lore. And some of it is cool because I've never seen it before. Like, I learned about Cal Scarada. So he is the only Mandalorian I want to see in Bad Batch, because I want to see if he creates a refuge. And that's where the Bad Batch go. And so I just want to encourage everybody to go out and explore the parts of Star Wars you haven't explored before, because as somebody who's in almost 50 years old, it's keeping Star Wars fresh for me.
So, John, if somebody were to run out to their bookstore or jump on the Kindle store or whatever it is and could grab one book right now, what would be the one that you would suggest? What are you enjoying these days?
The most recent one I just looked at was actually the Boba Fett, the little Boba Fett story arc from Legends, and where he becomes the leader of the Mandalorians. And it actually was interesting to me because they're making fun of him because he's wearing Dura steel armor, and they have Beskar. And they're like, a lot of times they're making him get behind us. That Dura steel can't take the hit. And so it's interesting to me seeing how the interaction is between these Mandalorians that really impacted that. There's like 3 or 4 books, and it shows like his relationship with the Empire, with Darth Vader, with the Hutts and everything. You literally can just Google it, and they're all available on Kindle. So those are the ones I recommend.
what's the name of the book? Which book is this? I can't remember. War of the Bounty Hunters? Which one? It was
War of the Bounty Hunters is one of them, yeah. Mm-hmm. They're all Legends material, but I highly recommend it. Actually, and I would recommend reading the Darth Vader comic, because in the Darth Vader comic, we've been
talking about that quite a bit.
He gets the Inquisitors.
Yeah, right.
You find out how he gets the Inquisitors, how he becomes so powerful, because the Inquisitors are all former Jedi who surrendered during the Jedi Purge, and they switched over to the dark side. That's why they didn't die. And that's in the Darth Vader comics.
It's awesome.
See, John, you're one of the fans that have this ability to connect anything and everything. You're totally. I remember your call from a couple weeks ago. Do me a favor, send me an email, show@rebelforceradio.com, just so I have a way to get a hold of you if I need you.
I unfortunately we let John go, but John, I know he's still listening. So show@rebelforceradio.com.
He's force sensitive. He knows.
He knows. All right, we got to wrap this up. We got a couple more super chats to show here. Where we got Kid Vader. Kid Vader comes in, says laser swords, Wookiees, flamethrowers, Trandoshans, the Force. What an episode! Not gonna lie, got a little emotional. Poor Gunji. Poor Omega. You know, I love this shot. I showed it a little bit earlier, but these two, I love this. Gunji and Omega at the end, both sort of communing with the trees. And I looked at this and I was like, wow, you know, these are sort of lost souls in a way that, you know, that have found each other. They're both looking for belonging, meaning, all of that. And even though Omega has this surrogate family of the Bad Batch, and they do a lot for her, I think she still has a ton of unanswered questions. And I just love how open she is to sort of, she's just open, you know, she's open to new ideas and kind of jumping on Gunji's faith and beliefs, and she's just in search. And I like that spirit of her, that she's in search of meaning and higher purpose and all of that. I think it's very, very cool. So
she has the ability. She has the ability to be super open-minded about things.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if somebody said to you, "Hey, you know, this tree. You can kind of, you know, put your head down and put your hand up against the trunk of this tree. You could communicate with it." Well, there's two ways you can react to this. You could be like, "Oh man, what are you, nuts? You're out of your flipping mind, dude."
Pass that over here.
Or you can just submit to your curiosity and say, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna give that a try. You know,
right.
I'm gonna see if I can actually communicate with these trees. Why not? It's not gonna cost me anything." So you just, like, you know, give into that, and Omega's doing that. And when I saw this, I couldn't help but think, there must be some sort of force sensitivity going on here. It's more than just curiosity. I think she actually is communicating with the trees, and she's tapping into that affinity for the force that Wookiees have. And she feels it. What got Yoda to have such a relationship with the Wookiees? Well, it could be something as simple as they got talking trees on their planet, man. That would get me there.
Well, we know one of the reasons
all the time.
Look, we know one of the reasons that Yoda goes to Dagobah is the fact that it's teeming with life, and it was easy for him to sort of blend in and not be discovered because of all that, you know, life energy and all of that. So Yoda's very much into that, living close to the planet and the natural resources.
Oh,
you know, it might have been his experience with the Wookiees that really helped him survive on Dagobah all those years. Because there's no indication based on what we see of the. I think the Jedi in the Jedi Temple are pretty. They look to be kind of pampered. You know, honestly. I know that they're monks in a monastery, but they don't look like they're doing a lot of hard living. They got those cushy ottomans that they're doing they're doing their meditation on.
They got the ottomans. Who knew that
Mace
would be
does
such
that little
a
spin
solid
move
payoff
on the ottoman?
Yeah, sure. You know, I got pulled away from my family when I was an infant and had to give up any sort of possession, desire, or attachment. But Jedi, they got some damn fine ottomans there, man. You want a footstool? Here's one. You'll be talking about this for a long time. But, you know, here's the thing. It's like I'm just so wrapped up with the communicating with the trees thing, because listen, I'll be honest with you, and I did this at Skywalker Ranch. I hugged a tree. I mean they have these beautiful redwoods in Northern California.
We can't be friends anymore.
I hugged that damn tree. I hugged it, and it had something to say to me too. I also did it when I was hiking Mount Tamalpais with Stu.
Well, that
We left
explains
Rancho
all
Obi-Wan
of it.
We hiked Mount Tam, and you go through all these little microclimates along the way. And we came across this bunch of giant redwoods, and they were begging for a hug, just begging for one.
Hey, man.
Grabbed onto that thing. And I was
Grab a
kind of rubbing
branch.
on it a little bit more. I was rubbing on it a little more than that would probably be appropriate for most hippies. But there I was,
Yeah.
hugging that tree.
Hashtag
and
tree
felt-
two. Tree
I felt
two.
Tree
Hashtag
2 R2. R2 tree 2. That's me, R2 tree 2. But no, it's you gotta love your environment, and that's what the Wookiees do, and they do it really well. And I think the environment then rewards them. And so to see the Empire taking over their planet and burning those forests down, I mean, it's just wow, it's heartbreaking actually if you put yourself in the Wookiees' shoes or in their pelt or whatever, Yeah, so I mean that's what the Empire does. It'll take the thing that's most valuable to you, most sacred to you, and it'll just destroy it and put you someplace far away from it. So sad, but this is what the dark times are all about, friends.
Yes,
This
it
is
is.
what I've been this is the era of Star Wars I was so curious about for years and years and years, and we're really digging deep into it, and the Bad Batch is a really nice venue to do it. So I don't know where the fan base stands. I didn't really look around at any other response on the social media outlets and stuff today, but
when it comes
I felt really positive about this episode.
Yeah, when it comes to the Bad Batch, because we know what we know about the powers that be circulating the episodes out early to the different shill outlets. I just have no desire to look it up because I don't want to be. I'm enjoying this week by week, sharing it with you, Jim, sharing it with Tyler, sharing it with all of the RFR listeners. I don't want to. I'm enjoying it the way we're doing it. N64 Rescue says, I love Gunji and I love RFR. Well, we love you. N64 Rescue, thanks very much. That's very kind. We love the support. And finally, our old buddy, Rich Brendel, thrown in $10, says, put this in the Send Swank to Chicago fund. All right.
Yeah.
Rich, I'm committed, buddy. I'll be there. I'll be there. And I know
Rich will descend from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, just like the Kenrath were descending from the Worcester trees.
Wait a minute. What, Rich is from Fond du Lac?
Yeah, he's from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's in that Johnny Cash song, isn't it? Doesn't he? I've been everywhere.
It is.
I've been to Fond du Lac.
It is. Yes, sir. It most certainly is. And that's where Rich is from. Yeah, I've been
I love it.
everywhere,
I
Johnny
didn't even
Cash.
know that was a real place. I thought it was just in a Johnny Cash song.
No. Fondy. Yes.
Fondy. Wow. You guys make it so much fun. Thank you so much for all the great phone calls and the super chats and the chat in general. It's a blast. As fun as these shows are, these episodes are, it's even more fun when we get to share it all together. So thank you. And big thanks to Tyler Page. Tyler, our call screener, complete in his call screener fatigues there. Thanks for being here as always, buddy. Anything that we didn't get to, what jumped out at you this week on episode 6, Tribe?
Tyler's dog making a cameo.
Yeah, she's very convenient.
You're right over the shoulder.
Be a Jedi. If Gunji can be a Jedi, your dog can be a Jedi.
I was getting a lot of Jedi Fallen Order vibes from this. Just because you go to Kashyyyk and it's like all destroyed and you hear about Saw being there and stuff like that. And I can't help but think and hope that there's going to be some tie-in there. Because I want to see the destruction of Kashyyyk, and I feel like, I don't want to see it, but I want to see it. So, I'm really excited that they went to this planet. I totally didn't see this coming, and I wonder what Gunji's doing when Cal Kestis is there. Is Gunji running around the forest? Is he climbing the origin tree as a rite of passage? I don't know, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Jedi Fallen Order visit to Kashyyyk as well, because I totally completely spaced on that during this whole conversation. You go to so many places in Jedi Fallen Order, you know? And what, the Bad Batch wants me to remember every planet we went to in that video game? I haven't played it in like a year and a half. You know, last week Zepho, this week Kashyyyk, next week one of those planets on that show, that video game is going to appear. You could probably bet on it. So I like the crossover. I do like the crossover.
Yeah, so I really didn't have much more. John was he was a good caller, man.
John's a great caller, man. John's a great caller. Yeah. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tyler, as always.
Thanks, guys.
Much appreciate the help that you lend to us each and every week. Got my son. He's crashing the chat here. I don't know if you saw this.
Oh, is he?
Impersonating me in the chat.
What's he saying? Oh, Jason Swank. I'll toss yous. I'm toss yous. What the hell is he trying to say?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But it's past his
Is he
bedtime.
also
So everyone in the
Lightsaber
chat,
Boy 2.0?
everyone in the chat, tell Parker it's past his bedtime. He needs to.
He's worse than those spammers with the adult sites.
Oh, I know.
He's
like
yeah. Oh, it's the call is coming from inside the house.
Oh God!
Oh no,
so creepy.
Yeah,
all right,
episode next week on.
Hello, buddy. Season 2, episode 6. Jimmy Mac, Tribe. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts on what I thought was an exceptional episode of The Bad Batch. A standalone story with a solid beginning, middle, and end. And possible repercussions on the future for the Bad Batch. The Empire spotted them. They must have spotted them on Kashyyyk. The only thing that bothered me is that the story just sort of ended with Omega running out of the forest saying that the fire is out of control, and in the next shot there's no sign of a fire, maybe a little smoke, but apparently the Kashyyyk or the Wookiees were able to put that fire out, but we got no indication of that. What we did get an indication of what I think was some foreshadowing happened at the very end, the last scene, when Hunter is watching Omega communicate with the trees with the other Wookiees, and Hunter, I think it was the elder, the Wookiee elder, Yana. She said, hopefully one day the Bad Batch will find a new path. And Hunter said, hopefully far away from war. This guy is, he's a clone trooper. He was born and bred to be out on the battlefields. And I think this is foreshadowing a new direction for Hunter. I think Hunter is sick and tired of being a soldier. He's fatigued. He's had enough, and he wants to hang it up. And but I mean, how does a clone trooper do that? How does a clone trooper go from being born and bred to battle to I don't know, fishing with Captain Rex on that planet where he ends? I mean, there's so many things to think about how these clones evolve into their final days. We assume final days, of course. Now the Bad Batch, they have that growth acceleration, don't they, like other clones? So their days are already numbered anyway. As far as I remember, I believe they do, because they were created after Omega, and Omega clearly doesn't have the clone acceleration, the age acceleration. So Hunter's tired of being a soldier. Echo said in previous episodes he wants to make a difference. I think this opens up the door to him maybe joining the rebellion in an official capacity. Omega still showing signs of force sensitivity as far as I'm concerned. I think that's some foreshadowing for her. The other guys, Wrecker, he still just wants to blow things up. Tech is smart and he knows it. So, we're still looking for more evolution from those characters, if there is evolution to be had for those characters. But I think each individual member of the Bad Batch, Clone Order 99, I think they're all going to end up in a very different place than what we saw them start from when they were introduced in the Clone Wars. And so I'm really paying close attention to any hints as to what future paths will be placed in front of them. So watching closely, listening closely, loving the show, loving you guys calling in, loving the after show. Puffer Pig, not in this episode.
All right, that'll do it for us. Big thanks to Tyler. Thanks to all of our callers, our commenters, our chatters, all of that. If you want more Rebel Force Radio, check us out. Is that a puffer pig? There it is.
That is a puffer pig, yes. This is a puffer pig, and he has something to say.
I love it. I'd rather be on that side of the puffer pig.
Puffer pig. You asked for it, Swank. He has a tail. So
okay,
come
all
on.
right.
So maybe you would rather be.
Where are we? Oh, yeah. So you want to check us out over on YouTube if you're watching us live. Of course, you know about Rebel Force Radio on YouTube, but check us out. Please do at youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. We're on all the social media channels like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Our official website is rebelforceradio.com. Please keep listening. Please keep telling your friends. We love to have new folks drop in and discover everything that we're doing here at Rebel Force Radio. We will be back next week for more Bad Batch after shows. We'll also be back later this week for Rebel Force Radio, the weekly flagship podcast. So check it out. If you're just joining us through YouTube, you want to check out the you want to check out the podcast feed. So you can subscribe to Rebel Force Radio on your favorite podcatcher of choice. Many, many, many options out there from Stitcher and Apple Podcasts, and, Audible, and Puffer Pig, and all of that. Anyway, until then, we'll see you next time for Rebel Force Radio. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.